Howdy, good evening, and welcome to Pony's Transmission. Just before we get started, I want to let you know that today is actually the beginning of my 4th week taking hormone replacement therapy. I started July 4th. So I will start counting this as week 4 rather than week 3. As well as this is also the 4th episode of the show. So with that, without any further ado, on to the show. Hi, I'm Pony Horton. I'm old, I'm trans, get off my lawn. This is week 4 of my HRT therapy, and so basically the report is there have been a couple of other interesting changes. Last night I realized that I had not taken my half a pill in the morning when I went to look for my other half a pill in the evening. So I thought, well, I'll just take a whole pill. So I took the pill sublingually, of course, under my tongue, so that way it bypasses the liver and goes straight into the bloodstream. This has the effect of increasing the apparent dosage. Well, it happened. I'm laying there the other night trying to get to sleep, and I had my very first hot flash. Wow. And I also noticed this morning, and I'd never noticed it before, my nipples are sensitive. They hurt a little when I touched them, when I squeezed them a little bit. That never used to happen before. They were indifferent. I'd squeeze them, felt squeezed, no big deal. Now, it hurts just a little bit. I find that very interesting. Again, dealing with the usual dry mouth, munchies, I'm hungry a lot. And the dreams are pretty consistently vivid the way they are. Sometimes I'll remember snippets of them, sometimes not. So, and I have also noticed a definite softening of my skin on my elbows. Now, these elbows used to be T-Rex elbows. This used to be dinosaur skin here. This was terrible. I was ashy as hell, or even worse. Now, I can still feel that there's some ash to the skin, but they feel so much smoother and softer than they have in many years. And I only just noticed that the other day. So, there's that. Well, now it's time for Pony Show and Tell. You can leave now. You can leave. First thing for show and tell, very briefly, is the t-shirt that I'm wearing today. I'm wearing my LA County Squad 51 t-shirt from the television show Emergency. I'm a huge fan of that TV show, and recently one of its main stars just passed away, so in honor of Randolph Mantooth, Squad 51. The other thing for show and tell is I'm a movie buff. I love movies, and I have artifacts from a few movies. One of my favorites is a movie from 1976. It's a comedy. It was called Silver Streak, and it involves a murder on a train. It's a comedy. It's a wonderful film, kind of Hitchcock in style. And I have a number of little artifacts from the film. Sorry, this is a spoiler, but at the end of the movie, the train crashes in the Chicago Union Station. And so to do this, they built a mock-up of the locomotive at full scale, and they drove it through the sets that they had built at the Burbank Airport to simulate crashing through Chicago. And they did it full scale, full speed. A while after the film came out, I made friends with a fellow at 20th Century Fox, and he invited me down, and he let me tour the sets. I actually got to hang out on the sets of the movie. And I saw and got to play around on that locomotive mock-up. And among the things I got was the fake General Motors Electromotive Division builder's plate off of the locomotive. It was an FP7A, and this is made of masonite with a paper backing, and it's hand-painted to just vaguely on camera resemble the GM logo, the Electromotive Division of General Motors builder's plate that all EMT locomotives have. These here are car identifying cards that were seen in the vestibule of some of the cars in the passenger cars when you go between cars. These are up in the number boards above the doors. So these are just silk screened white over black artist paper. When the locomotive crashed, it crashed through two things. First was a very large mirror, which it turned out was a real mirror, not breakaway glass. I found that out the hard way. This is a sliver of that mirror, and when I was pulling from the locomotive's number board, I got cut. And at the end of the crashing, the locomotive went through a giant concrete pillar in the station concourse, and this is a piece of that pillar. This is the exterior skin of it here. This is the inside of it. It was hollow, and it was made of very, very light plaster-like material, much lighter than plaster, but it looks totally realistic on camera. It looks like concrete. And finally, I have here an HO scale version of the locomotive as it looked after the crash. You can see that it has what appears to be a smile on its face. The Amroad logo has been wiped out by the smearing effect of going through several different walls. I made this many years ago. I made this in probably 1976, and I still have it. So that's my show and tell for the evening. Silver Streak, a 20th Century Fox film starring Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor, directed by Arthur Hiller. Music, wonderful music by Henry Mancini. I can't recommend this film enough. Anyway, on to what I wanted to talk about for today's episode. Some of the medical trials and tribulations that one might expect. Now, this is my story. This is what happened to me. As I like to say, your mileage may vary. However, I'm going to relate to you what happened to me, and there's also an addendum story with that. And if you can get something from it, fine. But there is a lesson, and the lesson is that you have to be not only vigilant, but you have to be, you have to bully the system. You have to engage the system before it engages you. You have to take the initiative and step up. I had a situation recently with my endocrinologist. I actually had to go through 2 different endocrinologists here in where I live in my county. And they were both through the county medical system that I'm a member of. And neither of them were, let's just say we weren't going to work out. And so I needed to find another one. Well, there was a 3rd endocrinologist here in the county, and it was my impression that they took people such as myself, but so my primary care person sent a referral to them, and they bumped it back. And they said, we recommend that you go to Keck School of Medicine at USC in Los Angeles. It's only about 130 miles away. So I went to that came in the mail. And I couldn't understand what I was seeing, so I drove over to my primary. It's just a few blocks away. And I said, what's the deal with this? And they said, yeah, they bumped you. They don't do gender-affirming care. Oh, well, they don't do gender-affirming care. Ooh. Sorry. But they said, yeah, you're going to have to go down to Keck. But the good news is that you'll be able to be compensated for your mileage, or we'll provide an Uber for you. So in that respect, that's fine, and they should have satellite offices closer to here. So I should hopefully only have to go up there once just to get established. Anyhow, here was the thing of it, though. In both cases, you get a notice in the mail that says, you've been referred to and call this number for the referral. So when I got the first referral, which was to this other endocrinologist here in my county, I dialed the number, not in service. Tried it again, not in service. So then I went onto their website and I called their number, which is a completely different number. No idea why the referral had a wrong number. So then when it got bounced back to Keck, and again, my system wrote me the referral, and they said, call Keck at such and such a number. So I called them. Wasn't even the right department. Had absolutely nothing to do with who I needed to call. So I had to go again online. I had to look up endocrinology at Keck, call them up, and they had me in their system. They said it'll be a few days or a little while, a week or so before somebody reaches out to you. If you don't hear from us in a week, call back. And you can be certain that I will call back. But at least they know of me and they have me, so there's that. And hopefully I won't get bumped. So we'll see. This dovetails into another situation that happened with me recently. And I say it dovetails in because, as I mentioned, you really need to stay on top of the whatever medical system or that you're dealing with, whether it's an insurance company, whether it's a government like Medicare, Medicaid, or Medi-Cal if you're in California, or your state system. You have to understand that it's a bureaucracy. It's run by people, and sometimes people have bad days, and sometimes they have good days, and sometimes they don't really give a damn about doing their job one way or another, and sometimes they care a lot about doing their job. You never know who you're going to get. Well, I had a situation recently, and it relates to this in terms of how you treat the system. About a month or so ago, a little more than a month ago, at the beginning of June, I think it was, I went to go pee one morning, and blood came out. Is that supposed to happen? What's wrong with you? It didn't answer, just more blood came out. So, alarmed, of course, I immediately drove over to the hospital, which is just on the other side of town here, just a few minutes away. And they made me give it a sample. Came out blood, or at least bloody. It cleared up a little later on, though. However, they did give me a very, very extensive ultrasound. They had that ultrasound on me for quite a while. And they discovered a large mass. And they said, you need to see a urologist immediately. And I already had studied enough about bladder cancer to understand what this was. They said it's probably a cyst, but you don't know. And they say that because they don't want to scare or alarm you, and they also want to be cautious about it for, liability reasons. So I called the system in my county here, the main hospital down in town that I deal with, the city. And I talked to their scheduling person, and they said, well, yeah, we can see you in September. That's the earliest we can see you in September. Now, mind you, this is June. And I said, well, that's not going to work. September, I have what could be bladder cancer here. I need to see somebody immediately. And I'm telling you, in terms of indifference, I could hear the guy on the other end of the line picking his nose. Oh, sorry, it's closest to September. Nothing we can do about it. So I hung up, waited a minute or two, called back. Of course, it's a large bureaucracy, so of course I got a different scheduler this time. And this guy also said, well, no, it's the nearest appointment we have is September. And that's when I said, and this is the key factor, I said, okay, look, I'm dealing with bladder cancer here, and it's already a large mass. Bladder cancer is aggressive and very deadly. And in September, I might not be here. Or at the very least, I may be in such bad shape as to not be able to be saved. I need you to think outside of the box and find me an appointment as soon as possible, however, whoever, wherever. And then he said, well, we have another clinic over on Q Street. You might try them. What the fuck? Why couldn't anyone have said something sooner? I have to go through this rigmarole just to get somebody to admit, oh, there's another facility, they may have time. And I don't know, but you may encounter something like this too, where a bureaucracy just doesn't want to give you the answer you need. Sometimes you have to ask very specific or very leading questions to get an answer that you might want in cases like this. I basically just said to the guy, look, I'm at my wits, I'm at my last straw, I need your help. What can you do? And that's when he came up with this Q Street. So I called Q Street. They said, yeah, we can see you Tuesday. It was a couple days. So I went in Tuesday, and sure enough, the urologist already had all my paperwork. And she said, yeah, you need to be on the table immediately. And within, I think, less than 10 days, I was on the operating table. And they removed a large 4-centimeter mass that was, in fact, cancerous. Which means I have to go back now and get another operation to check to see if there's any more, or if there's anything new. As well, there's some other work that they need to do in there, which I won't go into detail on. It's not going to be pleasant. But the upshot of my story is that if I had not bullied the medical system, if I had just went, okay, we're going until September, Guess I just got to live with it. I'd be dying with it. And I don't know if that's going to be your case or not, but if you, for whatever care you need, whether it's for general medical or specifically for gender affirming care, if you're not getting what you need, push some buttons, rattle some cages, make noise. Don't take no for an answer. Because the resources are out there and they're for us, at least in the states where they haven't been taken away from us yet. Take advantage of them. But again, remember, you're dealing with people in a bureaucracy, and sometimes you need to push a little bit. Don't be nasty, or at least try never to be nasty. That generally doesn't get you anywhere. But, if you just appeal to them and without begging necessarily, but just saying, look, I need this, and this is vitally important, and please, what else can we think of? If the answer you're being given is not satisfactory and they don't seem to be coming up with anything else, say, what else can we think of? Please, let's think outside the box. That is a phrase that's important to remember. Think outside the box. Because bureaucracies are all about boxes. So, with that being said, thank you for joining me this week, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week here on Pony's Transmission. Excuse me. No, it's healthcare. Oh, I gotta take it. Hang on. Hello. Oh yeah, about Keck? USC? What? I'm being bumped again? Where? Nairobi? Nairobi, huh? Huh. There could be some really attractive men there. Might work.